Hi again. So what do you think is our biggest strength as humans? Is it our ability to survive in various climates and terrains? I don't think so. Is it our strength? We lack both fangs and claws. Our greatest competitive advantage is our ability to organize, because while we are weak as individuals, we are strong as a group. We can accomplish more together than alone. And that's exactly what we've done throughout human history, and we've used tools to do it. Imagine that you were a hunter-gatherer in the Stone Age. You used flint spearheads to hunt woolly mammoths as a squad. Imagine you were a Neolithic farmer in the agricultural revolution. You used organized religion to create shared values that enabled peace between unrelated individuals in the first cities. Imagine you were an ancient Sumerian in 3000 BC. You used writing to coordinate across time and space to govern the first empires. Imagine you were an Indian craftsman in the 5th century BC. You used corporate personhood to speak with one voice against the political power of the state in the first guilds or cities. Imagine you were a Dutch merchant in the 17th century. You used limited liability to create joint stock exchanges to pool massive amounts of capital from massive private enterprises like the Dutch East India Company. And imagine you were an English worker in the Industrial Revolution. You used cooperatives to participate in the means of production by owning your own stores. And in the 21st century, in the new digital age, we can do new things. We can coordinate instantly across borders. We can provide services across borders. We can send money instantly anywhere we need. Now, DAOs are a response to that need. So, what are these needs? Imagine you want to organize an investment syndicate to bid on the Constitution with a $50 million bid, copy of the Constitution at auction. You need to pool capital from thousands of people, but no accounting firm can track that many people in just a week. No lawyer can turn the docs that fast. No bank can onboard you that fast. So you're stuck. It's just hard to do legal and financial structuring ad hoc. Imagine you're an open source developer collaborating with other developers around the world on software used by thousands of people. You only like participating because there's no hierarchy, there's no boss. But how do you decide on a product roadmap? How do you monetize? You're stuck. Imagine you do business in Venezuela, Somalia, or Syria, the 3 countries lowest on the rule of law index. You can't rely on contracts because there's no viable courts. You can't rely on banks or accounting firms to only let you transmit money or only with your approval because corruption is endemic. So you're stuck. Today, we can communicate instantly, and DAOs are a response to this need. They're a way to organize around our technologies. So, what is a DAO? It's surprisingly hard to define. There's a lot of confusion. Perhaps that's because the term itself is a little bit confusing. I mean, decentralized autonomous organization. Does decentralized mean the organization is decentralized, in which there can't be a central leader? Or does it mean the autonomous organization is decentralized, in which the code that defines the rules runs on decentralized computers? It's actually ambiguous. Perhaps the reason it's confusing is because influencers tend to describe instead of define DAOs. Koopa Trooper wrote, internet communities, DAOs are internet communities with a shared cap table and bank account. Right? But some DAOs don't have tokens and don't have treasuries. Is a group of NFTs with NFT artists with neither not a DAO? I think it is. Bankless wrote, DAOs are digitally native communities that center around a shared mission. But World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, these are digitally native communities with a shared mission, and I don't think we consider them DAOs. Some people think communities, any community, regardless of blockchain, is a DAO. But Is an investment syndicate not a DAO? Not always considered a community. It could just be a few people. Whatever the reason, we haven't really coalesced around a definition, and this is our Achilles heel. Because if we don't have a definition, then DAOs are confusing and they're easy to delegitimize. And so we need a definition that we can rally around so we can communicate to the rest of the world how to conceive of DAOs. So here's what I propose. A DAO is a community where rules are enforced ex ante, which means before the fact, by transparent code on the blockchain, instead of ex post, which means after the fact, by judicial enforcement of bylaws. And when you think about this definition, it becomes clear that DAOs are an incredible tool. So think about that constitution, an investment syndicate. You can copy and paste the code and scale it to thousands instantly. Imagine that open source developer. You can prescribe without hierarchy, so you can all work together and make decisions. Imagine you're in a country with no rule of law. Now you can have compliance that is assured rather than deterred. And now that we have a definition, we can start to describe DAOs. And like most things, they exist on a spectrum. So, for example, DAOs often exist, there's a degree of decentralization. Some DAOs are just, let's say it's a syndicate, thousands of people contribute capital, a few people make the decisions. On the other hand, it could be very decentralized, where everyone votes on where to send the capital. And then there's a degree of automation and autonomy. Some DAOs have a multi-sig where two people can approve any payment. Other DAOs like Bitcoin have all their rules on-chain. There are no, real non-automated rules to apply. And there's other spectrums. There's nonprofit to for-profit. And like most things, DAOs often exist in between. The descriptions. So now that we have a definition, we can start to answer some of the questions that society prompts us with. So what is a DAO? Well, it's kind of like a company, but the bylaws are in code on the blockchain instead of in writing. How did DAOs start? In 2016, the first DAO was an investment firm with 14% of outstanding ETH contributed. And what are DAOs used for? Well, they can be used for anything a corporation can be used for, and more, from high school chess clubs to national governments. Why are DAOs useful? They're another tool for human organizations. Sometimes they're just more effective. In particular, they can assure compliance with the rules. And who uses DAOs? A lot of people. There are 1.6 million members across 4,000 DAOs with $10 billion in assets. So DAOs cannot be ignored. The simplicity of these answers is what makes this definition a good one. And so I submit it to you all for this conference to refer to and think through. And of course, if you're here, you know that DAOs are more than just a better company. They're a technology that enables a movement for a more grassroots and open and free society. They have huge promise, and we really have yet to see what they can become, but we're creating that future together. But there are challenges. Tooling like software and best practices are still in their infancy. It's hard to deal with tokenization, financial management, governance, law in a large group of people. There are securities laws concerns. If a token is a security, then perhaps DAO membership requires accreditation and KYC. The code might be written poorly, vulnerable to exploits. And perhaps worst of all, the rules could be written unwisely. Bad rules don't allow changes. Imagine if the Constitution couldn't be amended, we might still have slavery. Bad rules remove human discretion instead of integrating it. We might not have as many incarcerated nonviolent offenders if we didn't have mandatory minimum sentencing laws that remove discretion from judges. These are not mutually exclusive with code. And bad rules create indecision by requiring consensus instead of creating accountability. I mean, imagine if the US Congress had 300 million people and everyone had a right to participate. We would get nothing done. So we are pioneers and we have really hard work set out for us, which we'll talk through in the coming days. But even if these are solved, there remains a really, really big problem: litigation. And we should be scared. We should be really scared. So, some context for myself: I've grappled with 3 DAOs. I'm the co-founder of Shipyard Software. We are an exchange group for decentralized finance. We noticed that DEXs tend to have retail traders subsidize whales because retail users don't need tons of liquidity. So we created a DEX specialized for retail traders that has the best prices anywhere for trades under $10,000. And we created a DAO to govern it. I co-founded the Foundation for Art and Blockchain. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that empowers artists. And in 2018, I co-founded Codex, which is a protocol, an early NFT protocol, for which we created a DAO. So 3 DAOs. And I also have some experience with traditional companies because I'm on the board of a regulated yen-backed stablecoin company. I sold a Web2 venture-backed company, and I spent a lot of years in venture at FJ Labs in Bessemer, and did an MBA and BA at Harvard. And one thing from all these experiences that I've concluded is that I believe that DAOs are the most transformative use case to come out of blockchain. But here's the thing: even if a DAO is governed on the blockchain, its members still live in the real world. So even though they don't need laws to enforce code, if they don't comply with laws, then they can face penalties. And that's a real concern. They have 2 key legal problems. The first is corporate personhood. This allows groups of people to speak with one voice. It's necessary in order to legally hire people, sign contracts, open bank accounts, and speak for the company. And if you try to do that as an individual on behalf of a group, but you don't have a company, then you expose yourself to liability. Which brings us to the second issue: limited liability. Limited liability is something that enabled the first massive enterprises, right? It means that if a DAO is hacked, loses a bunch of money, your personal assets are protected. So if you aren't incorporated, which most DAOs aren't, and there's damages to someone, you could be sued personally for everything you're worth. Okay? Even with limited liability, US corporations spend $22 billion on litigation a year, and over 10% are sued every year. So it's a big problem, and just imagine if they didn't have limited liability. The class action lawyers would go after all the individual shareholders for everything they're worth. We don't want that. I don't want that. And so if we ignore these issues, then you have to believe that class action lawyers are coming. They are on their way. Now, the obvious solution is incorporating, but this is not as simple as it seems because existing laws weren't written with blockchain in mind, right? You have to have paper bylaws. There's no way to have code that might be unchangeable in certain ways be the bylaws. And you can't have token holders as members. You have to register members with names and physical addresses. And so trying to incorporate DAO is just a little bit like trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. But DAOs are creative, and so there's a few jurisdictions in which, we've tried to do what we can to be compliant. We want to be compliant with laws. It's just tough to do so. So Wyoming has led the way. Really innovative laws. There's some technical issues. You need quorum of 50% of members just to have a vote. But really, the problem is it's not sovereign. It's a state. And so federal laws take precedent, including IRS rules, which create some problems because tokens are classed as property. The Caymans and the Switzerland Islands both have foundation laws, but they never really conceived a blockchain, and so it takes a lot of legal massaging and a lot of legal expense, like 6 figures legal expense. And they require appointees that have discretion and can disobey and make decisions contrary to the desires of token holders. So it's not really ideal. And Panama has quite a flexible law, but Panama is on the OFAC blacklist, so it doesn't exactly scream legitimacy for your DAO when you're signing things on behalf of Panama. And so there's just no good option until now. So at Shipyard, we were unsatisfied with these options. To us, DEXs feel like ships. That's why we called our company Shipyard Software. We build these ships, these DEXs, and send them off into the proverbial DeFi on their own journey with their own crew. And DAOs feel similar. They don't exist in any jurisdiction. They spend all their time in what are effectively international waters, have no nexus in any particular company. So I wondered, how do ships do this? They don't necessarily have a country. And it turns out there's an answer. 20% of shipping capacity in the world is registered to a small, proud country in the South Pacific called the Republic of the Marshall Islands, or the RMI. The RMI has 60,000 people, over 1,000 islands. Their early settlers navigated the Pacific Ocean on rafts and canoes by feeling the swells. They are natural explorers. Until 1979, they were a territory of the United States, but since then, they're entirely sovereign. Seat on the UN, full sovereignty. But they are a freely associated state of the US. There's only a few of these. So US institutions support the Marshall Islands, in particular, the US Postal Service, the FAA, and the US military all protect and support the Marshall Islands as if it were US territory. So ship owners choose the Marshall Islands because of its sovereign, strong judiciary, its stability, and its favorable tax policies. So the RMI immediately grasped what we were trying to do. It's so similar. And so several weeks ago, they passed a new law, an amendment to their nonprofit LLC statute, offering clear DAO treatment. So your bylaws can be on the blockchain, and token holders can be members. It provides the same level of corporate personhood and limited liability as a US corporation. And the RMI's intention is to become the premier home for DAOs, just like it has for ships. And David Paul, the co-sponsor of the bill, has been incredibly inviting and welcoming. There's more to come. And so to make the process extra simple, a domestic company was created in the Marshall Islands called MyDAO, Marshall Islands DAO Directory Services. It is a concierge to help DAOs incorporate in the Marshall Islands simply and easily. And on February 8th, 2022, Shipyard Software incorporated the first DAO in the Marshall Islands, Admiralty LLC, which we call the Admiral DAO. So I just want to stop for a moment and thank the RMI for being so supportive and flexible, and MyDAO for helping us navigate this new area that we were unfamiliar with. MyDAO is led by Bobby Mueller, who's the former chief secretary of the Marshall Islands, and Adam Miller, who is a DAO native based here in the US. He's here today. The Thriller, and online. And so if you are interested in incorporating, I encourage you to talk to him and ask him questions, get his help, and visit the website, mydao.org, where you can request more information and secure a waitlist spot as they scale up capacity. So if you're here, you're a DAO pioneer. And our goal is to create a new stage in this evolution of human organization. DAOs can be that next stage. When people around the world can join and collaborate in communities with transparent and enforceable rules on the blockchain, we can accelerate human progress in ways we probably can't even imagine today. But we're at a bifurcation point. Society is becoming increasingly complex. That's why we need a new form of human organization. And complex systems, if they don't evolve, they tend to collapse. We're all here because we're invested in taking positive actions to try to create a better future that we all sense is not only possible, but just around the corner. So, what do you need to do next to help create that future? Incorporate. Take a small step to protect yourself and ensure the future of DAOs. It's time to use our superpower as humans to organize in the new way that DAOs create for us. We'll create a new future. It's going to be the most transformative thing that blockchain produces. And to protect us from litigation, as we enter this new world, please just incorporate. And that's how you can do it.